It was author, TV personality, and personal finance expert Susan Orman who said, "Owning a home is a keystone to wealth, both financial affluence and emotional security." In this lesson, we're going to estimate closing costs. We're going to create an amortization table for a fixed rate mortgage. We're going to create an amortization table for a fixed rate mortgage with extra payments. And we're going to investigate the amortization rate for a table, and we're going to investigate the amortization table for an adjustable rate mortgage. All to answer the question, what will the American dream cost you? Before we begin, let's make sure we're ready for this lesson by looking at warm-up number 2. Jordan saves X dollars per month for 30 years. Express his savings after 30 years algebraically. Well, if he saves it for every single month and 30 years, that's going to be 12 times 30, which is 360 total times saved of X dollars. So 360 times X. Now, let's take a look at a problem that you will be able to do by the end of this lesson. Chris and Jean have a 6-month adjustable 15-year mortgage. They borrowed $300,000 and were quoted an initial rate of 2.99%. After 6 months, their rate increased by 1%. Examine the following spreadsheet for the first year of payments. How were the amounts for payment 7 calculated? In the spreadsheet, you need to adjust the formula for payments 7 through 12. You're going to enter the interest rate 3.99% in cell C2 and the length of the loan to 14.5 years in cell C3. Adjust the formula in row 12 so they use the adjusted interest rate, length of the loan, and the current principal balance. Then copy those formulas into row 13 through 17. So here we can see the changes that I made to the C6 column by looking in the command bar. Here are our changes to D6, the changes to E6, and F6. Once you have your mortgage approved, you're a big step closer to home ownership. Here are a few questions that you must investigate thoroughly before buying a home. What is the cost of the home? Will you need to make a down payment? Where's the home located? How many rooms does the home have? What is the size of the property that you will own? What condition is the house and property in? What type of heating and cooling system does the house have? What is the approximate cost of running the house? You know, the electricity, gas, water, etc. One of the biggest concerns for a prospective homeowner is the cost in both immediate and in the distant future. Costs fall into 2 categories: recurring costs and non-recurring costs. Recurring costs are those costs that occur on a regular basis. Some example of recurring costs are mortgage payments, insurance payments, and property taxes. Non-recurring costs are those one-time costs, moving costs, and many of the costs at the closing are non-recurring. The closing is a meeting attended by the buyer, seller, their attorneys, and a representative of the lending institution. The official sale takes place at this meeting. The buyer is responsible for paying the closing costs. Although it can differ from state to state, some of the most common non-recurring closing costs are going to be explained here. An earnest money deposit or good faith deposit is the money paid to the seller by the interested buyer to show that the buyer is serious about buying the house. Attorney's fees are fees paid to an attorney in return for representation at the closing. The origination fee is money paid to the lending institution for the paperwork involved in the loan application process. Title is the legal claim of property ownership. It is common practice that before property can change hand, a title search is conducted. A title search is a procedure used to make sure that the seller does actually hold the title to the property being sold. Points are extra fees charged by the lending institution for the use of their money. Each point is equivalent to 1% of the loan amount. There are 2 types of points. Similar to origination fees, origination points are collected from the buyer as a means of paying for the loan application process. Points that reduce the interest rate of a loan are discount points. They generally lower the interest rate by 0.25% on a fixed rate mortgage and 0.37% on an adjustable rate mortgage. These percentages vary depending on the lending institution. Prepaid interest. The mortgage interest is not paid like rent. Rent is paid ahead of time when you live in the home. Once your mortgage payment begins, mortgage interest is paid as it appears. interest rates accruing or building at the beginning of each month and continue through the month. When you make your mortgage payment, you are paying the interest that is building up on the money borrowed during that month that has just passed, except for the closing. Prepaid interest at the closing is the amount of the mortgage interest due to cover the time from the closing date to when the first mortgage payment is due. For example, if you close on the 10th for the 30-day month, you'll need to prepay 20 days of interest at closing. A transfer tax is a fee that is charged for the transfer of title from the seller to the buyer. Here, we're going to learn about the financial aspects of the closing and the years that follow the purchase of a home. Now, let's estimate closing costs. Leah and Josh are buying a $600,000 home. They've been approved for a 3.75% APR mortgage. They made a 15% down payment and will be closing on September 6th. How much should they expect to pay in prepaid interest at the closing? First, we're going to determine the amount that Josh and Leah borrowed since they made a 15% down payment. We're going to multiply the $600,000 by 0.15 and then subtract the down payment from the original amount. So, $600,000 times 0.15 will give us $90,000. Subtracting that from the $600,000 that is the purchase of the home, we wind up with a $510,000 loan. Now, we can calculate the loan amount by recognizing that 15% of the purchase price was the down payment. Therefore, if we subtract 15% from 100%, then we wind up with 85% remaining. Multiply the purchase price of the house by that 85%, so that we have $600,000 times 0.85 to get $510,000. Josh and Leah's first mortgage payment will be due on October 1st. At the time they prepay the interest from September 7th to September 30th, for the total of the 24 days, the amount of prepaid interest is calculated as follows. $510,000 times 0.0375. That's going to give us $19,125. So there's $19,125 in annual interest on this loan. If we divide that by 365, we can get $52.40. So it's going to cost $52.40 in interest per day. Now, we're going to multiply the daily interest rate by the number of days to be prepaid, which is 24. And this is going to give us $1,257.60. So Josh and Leah will owe $1,257.60 in prepaid interest for the remainder of September. Let's check our understanding of this. How much will be charged in prepaid interest on a $400,000 loan with an APR of 4% that closed on December 17th? That closed on September 17th makes me first start with saying there's 31 days in December minus the 17 days gives us 14 days that they're going to need to pay interest on. So if they had a $400,000 loan and they were paying 4% interest, which is 0.04. Now that we're going to wind up figuring out what is the day. So 365 is what we're going to divide it by. We then multiply all of that by the 14 days that they have to pay the interest for. Leah and Josh know they have to bring their checkbook to closing. What might they expect to pay in total closing costs? Although there's never guarantees, the rule of thumb is that you can expect to pay closing costs to run from 2 to 6% of the purchase price. These numbers vary depending on the location of the house and any special circumstances. So $600,000 times 2% gives us $12,000. Now, if we wanted to find out what it was for 6%, we would multiply that by 0.06, and in that case, we would get $36,000. So Leah and Josh should be prepared to write checks that will total from $12,000 to $36,000 at closing. Let's check our understanding of this. Sharon had to make a down payment of 15% of the selling price of her house. She was approved for a $340,000 mortgage. What range of costs might she expect to pay for closing? Since the mortgage is $340,000, so she's already made a 15% down payment, we need to calculate the purchase price by dividing the mortgage amount by 0.85, the 85%. This is going to give us $400,000. So if we had $400,000 and we wanted to find out what is 2% of it, we get to multiply by 0.02. And that's going to give us $8,000. But if we want to find out what is the 6%, we're going to take that $400,000 and we're going to multiply it by 0.06. This is going to give us $24,000. So they should expect to write a check somewhere between $8,000 and $24,000. Trudy and Tom have been approved for a $300,000 15-year mortgage with an APR of 3.98%. How much of their first monthly payment will go to interest and principal? The amount allocated to principal and interest changes from month to month. At the beginning of the loan, the interest payment is high and the principal payment is low. Only toward the end of the loan does the principal payment become larger than the interest payment. To calculate each amount, you need to determine the monthly payment. You'll need to use a slightly altered loan formula that allows you to enter the rate as a percentage rather than as an equivalent decimal. Since the decimal is needed in calculation, the monthly rate would be R over 12, and this is divided by 100. So this means we're looking at R divided by 12 divided by 100, which is the same thing as R over 12 times 1 over 100, or we could say R over 1200. This means our new monthly payment formula would be M is equal to P times R over 1200 times 1 plus R over 1200 to the 12t power, all divided by 1 plus R over 1200 to the 12t power minus 1, where M is the monthly payment, P is principal, R is the interest rate expressed as a percent, T is the length of the loan. So we substitute all of the values into our equation, and we find that the monthly payment is approximately $2,216.06. The monthly interest can be determined by using the monthly interest formula, which is that the interest is equal to P times R over 1200, where I is the interest, P is the principal, and R is the interest rate expressed as a percent. This means that I would be 300,000 times 3.98 divided by 1200. This is going to give us 995. So the first month interest amount is $995. If we know that they have a payment of $2,216.06 and we subtract the interest amount of $995, we get $1,221.06, which is paid towards the principal. Let's check our understanding of this. What percentage of the monthly payment went to the principal and what percent went to the interest? Well, when it comes to the interest, what we want to know is the interest dollars divided by the total dollars. So this will be $995 divided by $2,216.06. So the interest is 0.4489, or approximately 45%. And the principal amount would be the principal dollars divided by the total dollars, which would be $1,221.06 divided by $2,216.06, which would be 0.551, or approximately 55%. Now let's create an amortization table for a fixed rate mortgage. How can Trudy and Tom get an accounting of how their monthly payments will be divided for the first year of their mortgage? In example 3, we calculated the principal and the interest for a single month. Here, Trudy and Tom need data over the course of 12 months. To determine the principal and interest amounts for the extended period of time, they should review an amortization table for their loan. An amortization table is a listing of unpaid principal and monthly payments, the amount allocated to paying down the principal, and the amount allocated to interest. There are many websites that offer mortgage amortization calculators. Some of them generate an amortization table. Trudy and Tom can set up their own spreadsheet to generate this table. They first enter the basic mortgage data in column B, rows 1 through 4 of the spreadsheet. Next, they determine the information they need for the amortization table. It should contain the payment number, the beginning balance, the monthly payment, the amounts allocated towards principal and interest, and the ending balance shown in row 5. A6 has a 1 because we begin with the number 1. B6 has an equals B1, the beginning balance of the principal. C6 has a longer formula, but you're going to be able to see that in the command bar at the top. This is the monthly payment formula from example 3. E6 has the interest formula. F6 is the amount towards the principal is the monthly payment less the interest. G6 is the ending balance minus the amount towards the principal. So we go to set up row 7 so that it's copied into subsequent rows, filing down. When filing down formulas, the spreadsheet advances the cell's address in the formula down the road. If you use dollar signs in cell addresses, it won't change when copying. The entries in row 7 should be as follows. A7 is equal to A6 plus 1, and this will add 1 to each payment number. B7 is equal to G6. C7 is equal to $C$6. Now we put the dollar sign in cell addresses to keep it from changing. E7, again, we're going to add the dollar sign to keep the cell address fixed. We then fill in the F7 and the G7. The completed table for the first 12 months is now shown. Let's check our understanding of this. Adding the sum of cells to the bottom of the monthly payment towards interest and towards principal columns to the following totals at the end of the first year of payments. Payments for 12 months is $26,592.72. Interest for 12 months is $11,669.74. And the principal for 12 months is $14,922.97. At the end of the 12-month period, what percent of the principal has been paid off? So we know the amount of principal that was paid was $14,922.97. Now, this is out of the total $300,000 that was borrowed. This means that we're going to wind up with 0.0497, or approximately 4.97%. Now, let's create an amortization table for a fixed rate mortgage with an extra payment. Trudy and Tom decided to make an extra payment of $100 each month to reduce their principal. They adjusted their spreadsheet as shown. What formula changes did they make in row 6 so that the extra payments could be accounted for? The way it was set up originally, the extra payments were already built in there because I have a tendency to think about this. But if it was not, then there would be a new column D. So the formula needs to be adjusted in the following ways. That the E6 would now be equal to B6 times B2 divided by 1200. The F6 would now be equal to C6 plus D6 minus E6. The monthly payments plus the extra less the monthly interest in the amount that goes towards the principal. And G6 would be equal to B6 minus F6. Now you can avoid all of this by thinking, I might want to make some extra payments all along. Let's check our understanding. Examine the loan summaries below for each of the two situations outlined previously. How much interest and loan time was saved by making the extra $100 payments towards principal each month? Well, with the extra, we find that we paid less interest. If we subtract that from without the extra payments, then what we get is $6,185.60 savings of interest and 10 months savings in time. This can be found because the actual amount of payments was 170 instead of 180. In the previous examples, each of the home buyers had a fixed rate mortgage. In a fixed rate mortgage, the interest rate remains the same throughout the term of the loan. In an adjustable rate mortgage, or ARM, the interest rate can change periodically. Therefore, the monthly payment changes as well based on those rates. Here is how an adjustable rate mortgage works. Lenders quote you an initial rate. That stays in effect for an agreed upon period of time. This can be as short as 1 month to several years. The monthly payment is based upon the initial rate. Often, the initial interest rate quoted is tied to the consumer's credit worthiness. In an ARM, the interest rate and monthly payment will change periodically. The period between rate changes is known as the adjustment period. A loan with a 1-year adjustment period is known as a 1-year ARM. In that case, the interest rate and the monthly payment may change at the end of 1 year's adjustment period. Some ARMs, known as hybrid ARMs, are a combination of a fixed rate period of time with an adjustable rate period of time. A 3-1 hybrid ARM indicates that the initial interest rate is for the first 3 years, and then there is an adjustment period every year thereafter for the life of the loan. There are many types of adjustable mortgages and many different rules and regulations attached to a hybrid ARM. This is just another example of buyer beware. You must always be sure to read the fine print. Now let's create an amortization table for an adjustable rate mortgage. Chris and Jean have a 6-month adjustable 15-year mortgage. They borrowed $300,000 and were quoted an initial rate of 2.99%. After 6 months, their rate increased by 1%. Examine the following spreadsheet for the first year of payments. How were the amounts for payment 7 calculated? In the spreadsheet, you need to adjust the formula for payments 7 through 12. You're going to enter the interest rate 3.99% in cell C2 and the length of the loan to 14.5 years in cell C3. Adjust the formula in row 12 so they use the adjusted interest rate, length of the loan, and the current principal balance. Then copy those formulas into row 13 through 17. So here we can see the changes that I made to the C6 column by looking in the command bar. Here are our changes to D6, the changes to E6, and F6. Let's check our understanding. What effect did the 1% adjustment in interest have to the monthly payment and the amount towards interest and principal? We can see in the command bar the changes that have been made to the C12 cell. So the monthly payment increased by $142.68. The amount towards interest increased and the amount towards principal decreased.